Good evening, one and all. It's here again. Friday has arrived. I'd like to say the sun is shining, but it isn't. But I don't care. I don't care if it's raining, whatever it is. I'm getting wet from the inside out tonight. Cheers, everyone. Oh, dear me. I hope you're all doing marvellously well. And yes, indeed. Let's have a look, see who's in. That's usually what we do first off, isn't it? I hope you all had a fantastic week. Or at least bearable. I see we've got Anton first in. Congratulations, mate. And then we got Balder and Johnny Random. And scrolling down, we've got Sometimes Thin Never Din. And you've got quite a big comment there, mate. I'm just going to put that up on screen. Has anyone else noticed that John Robson and Phil McKnight have never been seen in the same place at the same time? Also, one claims to be from the north of England, the other North America. Yeah. That's a little bit like who was it? Michael Jackson and LaToya Jackson, wasn't it? Or you never used to until what was that movie? Godfather Part 2. You never saw Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in the same place at the same time. Who else we got? Grandpa Joe, Jeff C, Phil, Bridget Pollock, and Michael Palmer. Edwin Toonan's in, and who else have we got? I see we've got Michael Dodds, who's just bought the new X-Mighty plug, and it's great. Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm thinking maybe I should have one again myself, because I gave the last one to Budget Guitar Show, Johnny, because I didn't think I was going to use it. But when you think about it, what is it, 55, 60 quid? And you get all that amp modelling and a headphone amp and a recording interface. That's a lot of kit for your money, isn't it? So we've got Chris Long in, and who else we've got? We've got David Evans. How are you, mate? And then James Hunt, Gearview Mirror, Gordo Canuck, and Ian Clark. Dr. Gomez is in, so is John Ross and Mark Kerno, saying it's the best hour of the week. Well, I'm glad it's not just me that thinks that. I really do look forward to this little soiree, I think we'll call it, on a Friday evening. Then who else we got? Simon M and Michael Purcell is in. So's Paul Trainer, for the resident bass player. And then scrolling down. Did I say Ian Clark? I think I've just have if I hadn't already. Then we have John Channing and Savvy64, the Essex Cat, and Russell Gibson, Sean House, Vincent Brennan, and the Time Prophet. So there's Colin Falcon, local chap to me. We could almost open our windows and have a conversation. We live that close. Edwin Toonan is speaking to me there. Today I'm on the Little Wheat beer, according to the description on the can. Brewed in the UK, the taste is perfect. Yes, I forgot to mention that this evening I shall be mostly falling over and staggering later on because of the magical properties of Holston Pills. Then we've got Calby and the Rocco Cat, Steve Entwistle, Thomas Mulvaney, Chris Ottewell, and there's Deco Dude. And who else we got? Dale Davis and Peter Collins. And just there's a lot in tonight. OK Live is saying, evening all from Belgium. Thank God it's Friday. With Mr. Robson and the Cardinal Black album will be out soon, so at least some light in these rather dark times. You got to find it where you can, haven't you, mate? There's Peter Nicholson and Guitar Man. And then we got Mike Hurley and John Mack and Dale Davis. Did I say that already? I think I did. William Forrest, Ben Allmark, Graham Campbell, and the Time Prophet. I forget who I've said when I'm going through this. Stefan Goodmunson. I do apologise if I've butchered that. I do apologise profusely. Then there's Das Schaff and Ron Wells and Patrick Becker and Pablo Hankin, 60s man. And Bass at Night, Brad Dowell, PFY Guitars, Jay Jeffries, Gear View Mirror is in, and so is Cape Cod Dog and Martin Scholes and Jeff Rock. We got Matthew Stirl. It just goes on and on and on tonight, doesn't it? And then we have Mark Greening and Megalock Gelly, David Sudabi. Again, apologies for any butchered pronunciations. I'm just a simple northern lad. Kev Carp and is that Nulitara 36 is saying, John, I'm guessing back that your accent is a northern guy, Middlesbrough Teesside. I'm from Yarm. Yeah, well, I was born in Middlesbrough, spent quite a few years in the Lake District as a young man, and now I live in Redcar. Then we've got Steve Lamb all the way from Minnesota, and DJ W, and who else we got? I think we're getting towards the end now. Watches and Guitars is in as well. Runboy7426 is asking me a question. Have you played with the DSL-1 emulated output into a cab sim software or seen any need to? I did do like the DSL-1 emulated out just straight into the interface, and it's a really good sound. You know, I've got, I keep promising this, but I've got a bit of a comparison coming up between a mic damp, the DSL just emulated output, and just trying to kind of figure out the logistics of doing the comparison between that and the comparison between that and like just something in Guitar Rig, some some modeled things like that. But yeah, the emulated output is absolutely fine. No need to mess with it at all. But then again, messing with stuff is half the fun a lot of the time, isn't it? We've got Mr. Chris 5254. How are you, mate? DJ W Reloader, Michael Beliveau, Lawrence Hastings, Deck Charlton, and Johnny H. And I'm scrolling down, and there's more people in. We've got, I think that's all the ones I've mentioned anyway. So, yes, a very, very fine Friday evening to you, folks. The weekend starts here. You know, if I'm not drunk by midnight, I ain't trying hard enough. It's been that kind of week, it has to be said. So just not particularly stressful, but just busy. You know, when you've got 25 hours worth of stuff to get done every 24 hours, and you know, if anybody has, and I do apologise, my email account gets absolutely swamped. I try and keep on top of it, but if anybody has, you know, kind of emailed me over anything at all, like viewers' questions or anything like that, which is, as you know, what we're doing on a Wednesday, and I haven't got back to you, I do profusely apologise. It's not through want of trying. Anyway, round about this time of the evening, it is customary in these parts that I start telling you what's coming up on the channel this week. I'm just going to turn the light on over here because it's... there we go. That's a little bit brighter, isn't it? You can see me more clearly now. Is that a good thing or bad? Anyway, yeah, I usually tell you what's coming up on the channel in the coming week. And tomorrow I have one of my occasional Saturday videos. Basically, there is a type of guitar that I put it out. If you got a good memory, you might remember. I think it was on last week's live stream where I said, "Do you want me to check out this kind of guitar? See if it's as versatile as everyone says." And the overwhelming response was, "Yes, please. Check that particular type, that style, that subspecies of guitar out." So I thought, well, I don't want to spend a fortune, so I went and ordered myself a cheap version of it, and the company concerned were more than happy to take my order and my money. But when it came to sending me the goods that I'd ordered within a reasonable period of time, they were dragging their feet a little bit. That wasn't something that was a priority for them. So anyway, you'll find out in tomorrow's video what that's all about. But there is a certain well-known guitar retailer who are on the naughty step with me now for a little while at least, and I had to go elsewhere and spend more money. It doesn't matter really in the long run, because I don't think it's a guitar I'm going to be keeping. It'll come here. Well, it's here. It's actually over there on the workbench, but I can't show you because that would be a spoiler. But you know, it's one of those kind of livestock guitars. It'll be here and it'll get moved on, and hopefully there'll be a profit earned somewhere along the line. So that's tomorrow's video, 10 a.m. in the morning. Check that one out. Then on Sunday, the guitar which seems to have divided opinion, the ERT GW2. A lot of people were saying it looked absolutely gorgeous, and a lot of people were saying that it absolutely hurts their eyes to look at it. That is pretty much my take on that headless design of guitar myself. Pick one up and play one, and you will be a convert, I promise you. But then we get to the muddy sounding pickups, and we get to the fiddly faffy about tuning mechanism, and you know, and the slightly gimmicky nature of any headless guitar. And it's weighing those things in the balance. Well, on Sunday you will hear the guitar in a full mix. You know, kind of all the usual kind of workup that I do, and there'll be a tab for the Patreon members and all that sort of stuff, and a jam track. You'll hear what it sounds like, you know, as Brian Johnson says, under battlefield conditions. You can make your own mind what you think of it then, and you'll also find out whether or not I decided to buy it off the charity myself or not. Then, okay, so that's Sunday's video. Then on Monday, a little bit of shall I give you a teaser, or shall I just? I'm going to break with tradition. I'm just going to tell you the Monday solo, because I'm too lazy to think of any kind of cryptic clues to get you guessing. We're looking at a Ritchie Blackmore solo from the probably Rainbow's second biggest chart success. Ask anybody what Rainbow's biggest chart success was, and they'll say Since You've Been Gone. Well, name another big single they had off that album, and that's the solo we're doing. Then on Tuesday, again, it's a top five kind of thing, you know, the sort of thing I do on a Tuesday. And on Tuesday, I'm talking about 5 bands and artists that I've kind of everyone else seems to know about, and I've heard of, but you know those kind of bands and artists that are on the periphery of your kind of consciousness. They're there, but they've never really been on your radar at all. And you know, and I've just recently checked them out, and you know, kind of made some happy discoveries about, you know, why haven't I been listening to this band for ages? So that is Tuesday's video. It's actually called Excuse My Ignorance. 5 bands I should have known about, but have kind of been ignorant of until now. Then on Wednesday, we again, a response to a viewer's question. If you have any questions at all of a remotely guitar or music related nature, then all you got to do is ping me an email, jrguitartuition@gmail.com, or if you're a Patreon member, send me a Patreon message, or if you leave a comment in the, you know, below a video or something like that, and you know, and if I don't get back to you, just it doesn't mean I'm ignoring it. It just means that I'm an idiot and I haven't seen it. So just try, you know, just kind of ping me again, and I promise I will try and include it. But basically, any remotely guitar or music related question, I'll try and get it worked into a video. And that's what someone did when they were asking about how to dial in tones in Native Instruments guitar rig, which I like. I don't use it that much these days because I've got the little Marshall combo, but you know, I dusted it off, and I had some fun with it, putting that video together. So that's Wednesday's video. And then on Thursday, another unboxing, and I'm not going to tell you what that one is because well, that's again a bit of a spoiler alert, but basically we're unboxing another guitar on Thursday, usual sort of unboxing, first impressions kind of thing. And that is this week on the channel. And excuse me, I've been talking for a little while now, and I need a little bit of lubrication. Right, let's see what's been going on in the chat while I've been blethering. Pablo Hank is saying, where you gone, Pablo? I made one of those happy discoveries about 2 years ago. Tom Waits, been around for decades. I knew the name and I'd never heard any of his stuff until a couple of years ago. Love his stuff now. Yeah, I blow hot and cold on Tom Waits. He's one of those artists that, because he's been around for decades, he's gone off on lots of different tangents, and and some of the stuff he does, you just think, I'm not with you I'm not on the same page as you here, Tom. But yeah, if you're not already familiar with these two albums, Heart Attack and Vine is well worth checking out, as is Blue Valentines. And the live album he did, Nighthawks at the Diner. It's not exactly a live album. What they did was they turned the studio into a nightclub and just got an audience to come into the studio, which is a novel way of doing a live album. Let's see what else we got going on. No, Colin, it's not I Surrender. That was from the follow-up album. Let's see if anyone. Yes, Das Schaff has got. Dr. Gomez, I beg your pardon, has got it All Night Long. I tell you what, the title of the video is, I think, something like "This Rainbow Song Has Dodgy Lyrics, but one heck of a solo." And it really, you listen to the lyrics and you think, oh, yeah, that doesn't sit well in this day and age. You'll know what I mean when you go and listen to it. I see we've got Angel Martinez in all the way from New York City. How are you, mate? Nice to have you with us. I hope you're having a beer. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, mate. Let's have a look. Didn't you start your professional career during the period when half of bass players and a fair chunk of lead players were headless? Well, yeah, I started my professional career. It depends. If the taxman's asking, I started in 1992, but I actually started a few months before that, just testing the water, nothing serious. But yeah, I started in 91 unofficially, but it was 92 when I actually, kind of held my head up and said, hello, I'm self-employed. So the whole 80s Steinberger and Status bass, because I don't think Status made guitars, did they? They made the Status headless bass was kind of quite the thing for the sort of slappity poppity bass players in the 80s, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean that Earth guitar, it's a beautiful thing to play. 350 quid. I've played guitars that cost many times more than that. Guitars with, a certain 3 initial that might involve an S, a P, and an R in the initials that don't play as well as it. But it's just, it is kind of a Marmite guitar to look at, and it has flaws that I just don't see any way that you can get round. Let's see what else is going on in the chat. Let's have a look. I see a lot of you have been having a bit of a conflab with each other. Bald was saying, I skipped attendance last week. I was pouring pints in Troon Hall at the Scotland's largest real ale festival. Well, I think you're excused from that, kind of sitting and watching a fat, bald northern lad talking rubbish for an hour, or real ale festival. I know which I'd go to be honest with you. John, going to put a P90 in the neck of my telly. Should I change the volume pot to 500k or try middle ground 300k? Well, the only experience I've got of a mixture of single coil and P90 is on the Frankenstein Telecaster back there. You can see it's got a Wilkinson P90 in the neck position. Well, you can see it's a P90. You can't see from this distance it's a Wilkinson one. And a regular Telecaster bridge pickup. That just, if my memory serves me correctly, still has the 250k pots, or 250k volume pot that is like standard on a Telecaster. And I've never felt any ill effects from it, to be honest. I think this whole kind of thing of, this kind of gospel that you've got to have this value pot for this type of pickup. It does make a difference, but it's a difference that can be very, very soon remedied by just inching the treble control on your amp half a notch or more, or thereabouts. Yes, there is a what you would call an optimum kind of matching kind of pair that you could say, but it's not the end of the world. Try it, mate. I mean, potentiometers are not exactly the most expensive things in the world. Try a few different ones, swap them out, see which one, which one floats your boat the most. That would be just experiment and see what works for you. Megalock Gelly is saying, can you recommend a good power supply for pedals or the best way to tidy things up? Well, the best way to tidy things up is, cable ties. That's what I use. I have a very simple pedal board. I have only two things on it at the moment: a wah pedal and a looper pedal, and I suppose the channel switch for my amp. So it's a very simple pedal board, and it has an integrated power supply that has. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9-volt, 5 9-volt outputs and 2 12-volt outputs. And, as I say, it's got a built-in power supply, and it cost me about 40 quid on Amazon. Unfortunately, I can't read the brand name of it from here, but if you just search on Amazon for pedal board with integrated power supply, and it comes with all the little kind of the little power leads and everything. So, that might be worth checking out. And I'm sure I seem to remember that they did like a bigger version of it with more power outputs. Let's have a look. Dave Pegg, that's a great question. You think you've got to be born with rhythm? Some people I know never seem to get it no matter what. Here's the thing. I don't think anyone at all is born with or without any inherent musical ability or talent. You do occasionally get some people, very occasionally. I think I've met one person like this in my entire life that just has no appreciation of music at all. They don't get why music is a good thing. They don't understand why music is, something that's worth bothering with. And fair enough. That's like me and football, to be honest with you. But it's a question of how much you love it, I think. If you are impatient and you want instant results and you get frustrated at kind of the amount of time all of this practice is taking you, and you just kind of want to get it done now, and then you just try taking shortcuts to get there, that is never a recipe for success. You just have to enjoy the ride. It's ever since I first picked up a guitar at age 11 and I put my fingers into that little triangular D chord shape, and could pick up a musical instrument and make a musical noise of some description. That was it. I was absolutely hooked. And all of the practice and all of the, frankly, hard graft that you have to put in never seemed like hard work for me. So I think it's, when some people say they find it easy, it's not a measure of how easy they find it. It's just a measure of the fact that they don't notice that what they're doing is kind of working hard at it. Possibly. That's just my theory anyway. Here we go. Let's see what else we got. Phil, that's a good point there, mate. I think you can improve your sense of rhythm. Mine improved splitting up James Brown stuff the hard way. I tell you what really helped me was learning to read rhythm notation. And it wasn't something that you can do like, kind of in a week or a month or something, but just learning to being able to visualize what a rhythm looked like, I think, is the kind of thing I'm looking at here. It's because music is just this ethereal thing that you can perceive, but you can't really quantify in a lot of ways. But learning what it looked like written down, a rhythm, what a rhythm looked like written down in notation, really helped me think, well, okay, so, that has to be on the beat, and that has to be just after the beat, and that has to be kind of in between the beats, and that kind of thing. And I've got to tell you, since I started doing the Patreon thing, where I'm putting at least a couple of tabs up every week, having to tab stuff out in Guitar Pro, you really do kind of improve your rhythm chops like that, because you've got to have all the rhythm notation down. And I've noticed that my rhythmic side of me playing has, developed in a very pleasing way since I started kind of tabbing stuff out in the quantity that I'm doing it now. A metronome also helps, says Dale Davis. Indeed. Although some people do find a metronome off-putting. I've been playing with a metronome since the 80s. I mean, my first metronome was literally one of the old-fashioned clockwork, wind it up, and the pendulum swings from side to side metronomes. But, I know a lot of people, and so I'm used to it, but I know a lot of people do find a metronome off-putting. If that's the case, just go out and get any one of the kind of effects pedals, or multi-effects pedals, or anything that has built-in drum beats. For instance, that little Joyo DC15S amplifier of Michael's that I reviewed, when was it? Week before last. The drum machine in that it's only a very basic drum machine, but it's perhaps a little bit more inspiring to play to than just that tick, 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 tick kind of metronome. Time Prophet is saying, I get stuck in Guitar Pro because I can't fit the notes in the bar. That's because you are definitely using the wrong rhythm notation. You're probably trying to fit a quart into a pint pot. And I've done videos on rhythm notation. As I say, it took me, it was just a column in Guitarist magazine. I think it was by David Mead. And then I think he published those columns as a book called Get Rhythm, which is probably long out of print now, but it was just really helpful. And it's, again, it was one of those things, I didn't have an immediate reason to learn to read rhythm notation. It was like, well, what good is this going to do me? I didn't know that in 1994 or whenever it was, I was kind of sharpening me kind of skills with this. I didn't know that, 27, 28 years later, I'd be, tabbing stuff out on a computer and posting it on this thing called the internet, which we didn't even know what that was in 1994, did we? But the thing is, I didn't have an immediate use for it, but I just thought, I was curious. It was like, well, yeah, this might come in handy, and it's something that I don't understand, and I want to understand it. I was curious, and I pursued it, and then the benefits paid off. And it was, I think there was it was one of those long-running columns in Guitarist magazine that seemed to go on month after month after month after month, and because you waited a month between each installment, you had plenty of time to practice what had been that month's exercise. And, all I can say is it worked for me. So there you go. Johnny Love is saying, I have a big Word doc now for Guitar Pro. When I solve a problem, I put it there for reference. Has come in handy. Yeah, I don't have a Word document, but I have when I first started using Guitar Pro, I did have a notepad, as in what we mean by a notepad in the old sense of the word, like pieces of paper with a spiral binding that I Oh, Chip Young is asking a good question here. What is the difference between 3/4 and 6/8? It's where the accent is, mate. Basically, 3/4 goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay. 6/8 goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's basically the difference. And just a little pearl of wisdom that sort of seeped into my knowledge bank from sitting in front of Strictly Come Dancing with the missus is that a waltz is 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A Viennese waltz, however, is 6/8 time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I remember a band I was playing with back in about 93. We used to do Parisian walkways. And because there was a mix-up with the agent one night, we were playing at the stuff we used to do was all kind of pop rock and stuff like that. And Parisian Walkways was one of the kind of classic pop rock kind of tunes that we used to do. And we were going down, as the saying goes, like Bobby Crush on an oil rig. We were absolutely kind of dying because it wasn't our audience. There'd been a mix-up with the agent. And then we played Parisian Walkways, and the dance floor filled up with couples doing Viennese waltzes, which was like the most bizarre thing to see. But there you go. Let's see what else we've got going on in the chat. Lawrence Hastings, small person on public transport, metronome, yes. Thank you very much. He's here all week. DJW is asking a question there. Anyone with any experience using Ableton Live 11 with the Yamaha THR10 and an external audio interface, Focusrite, Scarlett, Solo? All very, very, kind of widespread and popular pieces of software and kit there, but I have absolutely no experience of any of them. But if anybody does, then feel free to chip in. Megalock Gelly is saying, tried a few Gibson Les Paul tributes like the one you have, John, and they all have that little lip groove at the neck and the fretboard you mentioned. Maybe something to do with it being made for binding. Yeah, I thought that. I'll be honest with you, I was disappointed with that when I got it, but then, the realistic side of my brain kicked in, and I thought, well, it's a Gibson, and you kind of price that sort of thing in. Yes, I could have got a much better finished guitar for less money than I paid for that Les Paul tribute. But sometimes, as I said in that video, a guitar is more than just a musical instrument. I hold my hands up and say, yes, that Gibson Les Paul was just a little certificate of achievement for me that, I sold a Gibson Les Paul 30 years ago because, to keep the wolf from the door. And I just thought it was a nice circularity to get another Gibson Les Paul. And it's not the best finished guitar I've ever owned, but I'll tell you what it is. It's the best Les Paul I've ever owned, the best Gibson Les Paul, the best Gibson / Epiphone. It's the best Les Paul style guitar that I've owned. You know what it is? I've said this many times. I had this kind of love-hate relationship with Les Pauls for many years where after I sold that one 30 years ago, I got Les Paul copies. I had an Epiphone Les Paul. I've had vintage Harley Benton, more Epiphones. What else have I had? What they call them? One of those budget brands. And I want to say Westfield, but it's not Westfield. It'll come to me. But basically, I've had a lot of Les Paul style guitars, and I like them until I don't, and then I get bored with them. But I play the three main guitars that get used in here. Well, sorry, four main guitars that are getting used in here at the moment are Blondie. Time for the obligatory shot of Blondie. There she is. This is the number one, without question. Then these are all vying for the silver medal. There's me Les Paul tribute, and from the budget end of the spectrum. This little Faisley Telecaster copy. All right, I've upgraded it with some pickups and stuff, but what a great guitar. And I'm not just saying that because they gave me it. I was more than willing to pay for it. The reason why they gave me it was because I offered to buy it and they said, no, you can have it. But I was more than willing to pay full retail for this. It's a fantastic, fantastic Telecaster. So that and this. This is the best PRS I've ever played. And I've played quite a few. I've owned a few, and thanks to a certain gentleman in the chat, I played a few of his. But this is just as it's, you know, when you just make that connection with a guitar. This PRS S2 standard. So those 4 guitars are the ones that those are the run back into a burning building to save from the fire guitars, you know. Let's have a look, see what else we've got in the comments. Time Prophet is saying your PRS looks like a Gibson. It does have that kind of whiff of SG about it, with that the kind of cherry red and the black pick guard that's got like it's kind of like it's got that SG kind of feel about it. But this is a fantastic guitar. Very definitely a keeper. Is there a place in England where you can pluck your instrument? That's a very good question. I don't know. I would imagine there would be. It might be. I know Andertons were talking about, or Lee Anderton, aye, Captain. He was talking about getting a pluck machine there, but whether he ever did or not, I'm not sure. But there must be. There must be. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be, put it that way. That PRS would be so much nicer if it had bird inlays. Yeah, you know, I'm not going to rise to the bait, David. I'm just not. You know, I don't like those bird inlays. It's footballers' wives' territory, isn't it? Well, that's how I see it. And there's a very fine line between, you know, luxurious and ostentatious, and they just kind of tip it over the line, I'm afraid, for me. Let's see what else we got. Chip Young is saying, love that pickguard on the PRS. So the Larry Carlton has fallen down the pecking order. Do you know what? I've got 2 Larry Carltons. I've got the S7 that you can see on the wall there, and over in this corner here, the H7. This is well, they're both beautiful guitars, but at the moment, these things are subject to change. At the moment, I find myself not really playing either of them that much. This one probably gets played more than the S7 back there, because I'm more of a humbucker kind of player these days. I do like a brighter sounding humbucker, but well, it's not so much that. I'm less of a Strat player these days. I'm more of a twin pickup guitar player these days. I like just the simplicity of 2 pickups. Whenever I pick up any kind of Strat style guitar, excuse me, let's just put this down. I always find myself never being quite sort of sure, well, maybe I could get a better sound if I went to that position on the switch or this position on the switch. I always kind of start getting option anxiety with a 5-way switch. That's a bit sad, isn't it? But that's the way it is, unfortunately. But there is a guitar in the room at the moment. Oh, what the heck, I'm going to show you it. This guitar, where option anxiety is not a thing at all, okay? You're going to see me buying this guitar tomorrow. It is, of course, a Epiphone Les Paul Jr. Do you remember last week when I said, you know, would you like to hear me put... It's often said, you know, with this style of guitar, with a single pickup, that they are incredibly versatile. and you can get a whole breadth of sounds out of them. And I've never really put that to the test, but well, that's what this guitar is for. And you'll see me buying it tomorrow, if you choose to watch. That is, it's not compulsory. Yeah, I'm starting to put the track together with that guitar at the moment, because it arrived today, and I kind of did the unboxing video, and I'm kind of putting the piece of music together for it now. And well, you will see. You'll be able to make up your own mind in a few weeks' time when the video comes out, because I'm currently working on videos for kind of well into November, and that'll be one of those. So yeah, not a guitar that gives you option anxiety at all. Graham Campbell is saying, I love my one pickup DC Junior. Yeah, Dash Shaft, there is so much gaudier inlay work out there than the Vi Tree of Life. Yeah, it's just, I remember, I think it was Tony Zemitis built a guitar for George Harrison that had all kinds of fancy inlay work down the neck. And George was quiet, polite guy that he was, didn't like to kind of tell Tony that he hated it, so he stuck gaffer tape over it. So he just left the, gaffer. You get a guitar built for you by an artisan like Tony Zemitis, and George Harrison. Only George Harrison could have got away with this. Kind of stuck gaffer tape over this kind of probably Brazilian rosewood fretboard or something. There you go. Time Prophet is saying, I like the Kiesel Osiris headless guitar, but would have to sell an arm to buy one. Yeah, I mean, one of my students, going back about 4 or 5 years, bought a Kiesel. I'll tell you when it was. It was just right before before carving guitars became Kiesel guitars. It was actually branded as a carving. It was a CT6 California, and there's a video on YouTube somewhere of Joe Walsh playing one, which is exactly the same as the one my student bought. And Rick, my student, he paid, I think, a couple of grand for it, but compared to, which is not cheap by anybody's money. I'm not trying to say it's cheap, but compared to what you would have paid for an equivalent PRS, for example, to have this guitar spec'd up like a PRS, you'd have had to gone down the private stock route, and it would have just been 3 times what he paid for it if it had PRS on the headstock. And it was a beautiful, beautiful guitar. Faisley do a DC Junior for under £100. Anyone tried it? If I'd thought about that, I'd have probably gone with that one, actually. What about Vernon Reid? E equals MC2 squared. I like dots. I like dots or something kind of subtle and, not anything that's a bit too shouty and kind of flashy. So, it's just that these kind of fancy inlays, especially when you get guitar players who have their name inlaid on the neck of the guitar, that's just, that's just going a bit too far for me. It's just a little bit too much. I love me. Let's have a look. See, do you know what, Phil? I think you might have just hit on something there. Something deep in my subconscious. Bird inlays remind me of that fish on those nasty marlins. Yes, indeed. Then marlin sidewinder with that fish inlay at the 12th fret. Oh, dear me, weren't they awful guitars? And that was the nature of a cheap guitar in the 1980s, and that's what you had to play. Speaking of which, there's a vet of cheap guitars. There's a very kind gentleman who visited my humble abode today. Also, you've got Mike in from CGS. Hiya, Mike. A very kind gentleman who I think he's probably in the chat tonight. I won't name him in case he wants to remain anonymous. He turned up with a Les Paul copy from 1971, and it's an education. Looking at that guitar, you think, yeah, a Japanese Les Paul copy from the early 70s, and you think, wow, okay, yeah, I remember when cheap guitars were like this. And anybody these days who buys a Harley Benton or a Squire or a Paisley and says, oh, it's not as good as it should be, need to experience this guitar. I'm going to be doing a series of videos on this. I think it's a Yamato guitar, your typical 1970s Japanese bolt-on neck Les Paul copy. It's going to be something rather interesting. Not that I would call myself a luthier, but just as a frame of reference, these Crimson Guitars luthier teardown videos. I don't know if anybody else is addicted to those, because I am. Watching kind of pulling apart that dog ugly Yamaha thing earlier on today. Dear me, God, that makes the Earth guitar look like Tom Cruise, doesn't it? But yeah, I'm basically going to do that kind of thing with that guitar, that Les Paul copy, and it's got a lot of issues with it that hopefully I can put right and show you how to put right if you have similar issues on a guitar of your own. Mike's saying, wow, the year I was born. Oh, David, we got David K in. How are you, mate? Let's see what else is going on in the chat. Yeah, I wasn't talking about Martin guitars, Michael. I was talking about Marlin with an L guitars, the Marlin Sidewinder. It was essentially, if anybody doesn't remember the Marlin Sidewinder, it was essentially a collection of sharp edges held together with a guitar-shaped lump of plywood that was the best-selling electric guitar for 2 years running in, I think, 1987 and 1988, certainly best-selling in the UK. And it outsold the Squire Strat. And, it was just a dog-awful guitar with a nasty KKT locking tremolo system. Now, I don't like locking tremolo systems at the best of times, as I may have mentioned once or twice. But this was a particularly awful variant on the breed. It was, if you breathed on it too heavily, the guitar would go out of tune, let alone use the whammy bar. It was an awful thing, but that was the nature of cheap guitars. And there is an argument to say that having to learn on guitars like that and having to gig with guitars like that made you a more resilient and resourceful player. You learned, for instance, that if your guitar went out of tune mid-song and you had to bend all of the notes sharp until the end of the song, before, no such thing as headstock tuners in those days. You used to have to unplug the guitar and plug it into one of those little Seiko tuners and tune up while the singer gave the audience some flannel. That's what you had to do. And it kind of toughened you up as a player, I think. Not that I'd recommend it, these days, but it's that there were certain advantages to growing up with and cutting your teeth on inferior equipment, possibly. Or maybe I'm just being, one of the four Yorkshiremen from Monty Python, when I were a lad, because I do tend to slip into that mode once or twice. Time Prophet is saying flake. Yes, it had a slanted headstock. Anton is saying Marlin Sidewinder, heavy blockwood ply, nasty. We wouldn't even offer a free setup with those in the 80s. Yeah, but as I say, it was just probably some of the better guitars that started. The guitar which really made me think, okay, cheap guitars don't have to be cheap and nasty anymore. Does anyone remember a brand called Phoenix? Fenix. When they started coming out, they were like about the same sort of money, 150 to 200 pounds. And this was just slightly ahead of the Yamaha Pacifica. And, you know, they were just, suddenly it was like, actually, this is rather nice, and it didn't cost very much. And, you know, that was a surprise. But you kind of take it for granted these days. But, you know, the Phoenix brand, I had one of their Telecasters bought from Bandland in Stockton when it was on Prince Regent Street. Anybody in the Northeast will know that reference. Stefan Gudmundsson is saying, what are your favourite strings? I don't know, I'll show you. I buy these by the bucket load or by the container load. Legacy strings from Strings Direct. 10 to 46. They go on everything, regardless of scale length. I know some people like 9s on a Fender scale length and 10s on a Gibson scale length, but I just chuck 10s, a set of 10 to 46 on everything. And they're pretty cheap as well. I think £4 a set, which is, and they're as good as, you know, D'Addario, Rotor Sound, any of the big brands, I think. Phil is saying Phoenix were great. My mate had a telly and I loved it. It seems I'm not the only one who remembers Phoenix guitars. Who else has seen them? Yeah, Aria Pro 2 guitars. Someone's mentioning those. They were just that little bit pricier, though, weren't they? And they got a big boost from that fantastic publication. If you've never seen it or never owned it, dig one out. It's called The Guitar Handbook by Ralph Denyer. I've spoken about it a few times in videos. Fantastic, real wealth of information. And how Aria Pro 2 guitars got a big boost from that publication was because there was a bit of a lengthy foreword in it by Andy Summers, who was riding high with the police at the time. And there was a picture of Andy Summers next to this few paragraphs that he'd written, and he's holding an Aria Pro 2 guitar. And suddenly it was like, oh, well, if he plays one, you know. And yeah, but they were just that little bit more expensive than, you know, the kind of proper budget brands. And then they just started kind of the quality on Aria Pro 2 guitars started, you know, kind of, they became more the cheap guitar rather than the cheaper but good guitar. So I must try and get an Aria in for review at some point. You know, but I remember a mate of mine when I was at college had one. It was a black double cutaway twin humbucker kind of thing. I honestly can't remember whether it was bolt on or set neck, but yeah, you got a great sound out of it. CGS is saying my first guitar was an Aria Pro 2 RD Wildcat, or RS Wildcat, sorry. Yes. Let's see. The Westone Pantera. Dear me. Yes, Westone guitars. Tanglewood. That was that brand I was trying to think of earlier. You know when I said I'd had owned a few Les Paul copies over the years, and I really loved Vintage and Harley Benton and Epiphone and yada yada yada. And there was one I couldn't think of. Tanglewood was it? Just thought I'd get that in before the end of the stream. Yes, I do remember Westones. The Westone Thunder 1 wasn't that a bass though? But yeah, I remember Westones. I played in a band where the rhythm guitarist and singer had a Westone. Beautiful thing, all kind of that archetypal kind of late 70s, early 80s guitar, through neck, blonde wood, double cutaway, twin humbuckers, and millions of switches to kind of put into phase and out of phase and coil splitting and this, that, and the other. It was a lovely guitar to play and sounded pretty good as well. Let's see what else we've got. An Ibanez Blazer. Oh dear me, yes. That what was that the no? That was the Roadstar, wasn't it? The Strat-shaped one. What was your worst gear trade? I've never really done much trading, to be honest with you. I've always kind of bought and sold for cash. I can't really think that I've ever really done much in the way of, kind of, because usually if I've bought something, I've saved up to buy it, or I've, put it on the credit card or something. And if I've sold something, I haven't. It's always because I've needed the money, and I'm, so taking a guitar in exchange for a guitar is never really something I've done. I don't think. Just trying to think. I don't think I've ever done a trade. James Hunt is saying, I've got the guitar handbook, can't understand most of it. Oh, well, I don't know. Each to their own. I thought it was really well laid out and very kind of accessible, but I guess we can't all be the same. What do you think of orange amps, John? I've never really played through one. I've played through the Orange Micro Terror, but never. But that was belonged to a friend, and I played through it briefly and thought it was okay. I've never played through an orange under kind of proper loud kind of gigging or recording conditions. I do, however, when I'm using bias amp, there's an orange model in there. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's just called British Rock something or other. But the livery, in the kind of way it looks, it's obviously an orange, and it's a great sounding thing. That's one of the things I'm thinking about doing. That Valves versus VST kind of shootout at some point. That might be one of the patches I use. So I like the modelled version of orange amps, and I've used them quite a lot. Go back and see some of the videos where I was, kind of using amp models all the time, and I'll put like the settings on screen, and you'll see that there's a lot of like the orange stuff orange models I was using in those videos. Vincent Brennan had a Tanglewood acoustic, nasty plastic back. Yeah, they're acoustics. I agree. I played 2 or 3 Tanglewood acoustics, including an absolutely dog awful 12-string. That had an action like a hard-boiled egg slicer. It was just no, it wasn't. But some of the electrics aren't too bad. Did you ever play the Washburn Telecaster-shaped guitar that only had the piezo acoustic bridge? SBT21, I think. I didn't, but I do know the guitar you mean. Ovation ball-backed acoustics, are they still around? Well, I haven't heard that they're not, and you would imagine that a company as big as that if they did kind of suddenly abandon the marketplace or go under, that you would have heard about it. But that said, I haven't really seen one in quite some time. Right. What's your opinion on the new Spinal Tap film coming out in 2024? Hope it will be good. That's the first I've heard of it, to be honest with you. But I don't know, name me one good sequel that's happened after that period of time. I mean, the Blues Brothers one back 20 odd years ago, meh, frankly, it's one of those things where you really want it to be good. You really hope it's going to be good. And, well, fingers crossed, let's put it that way. I just think that, to be honest with you, those, sometimes it's like, well, would you try and rewrite Pride and Prejudice? You know, not that I'm comparing Spinal Tap to a great work of literary merit, but you know what I mean. When something has already been done, does it need revisiting? And I shall leave you to ponder on that conundrum, chaps, because we've been going. My little digital clock on the desk here is telling me that it's just coming up to 6 o'clock, and round about 10 past, I have the biggest, sweatiest, loveliest, greasiest, garlickiest doner kebab turning up, and I am starting to get a bit peckish at the thought. So, thank you once again, all 192 of you, for turning up and watching a fat bald lad talk absolute nonsense for an hour. It's been a blast, and I'll keep on doing it till you're sick of me. But once again, time, gentlemen, please.